Welcome back to Heber Valley Life Podcast, the podcast that celebrates the people, projects, and passions shaping our mountain community. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Spencer Coleman. Spencer is the owner of Signarama in Heber City, a family business founded by his parents, Clay and Lisa Coleman. Spencer now leads the company, continuing the legacy of exceptional customer service while adding the company with new opportunities in branding, promotional products, and business marketing solutions. Passionate about supporting the local businesses, Spencer works closely with companies throughout the Heber Valley to help them find the right message and medium to connect with their customers. His thoughtful leadership, community roots, and creative approach has helped Signarama continue to grow as a trusted partner for businesses across the region. So, Spencer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Yeah, for those that don't know your background, tell us a little bit about yourself.
About myself, oh geez. Well, one of the things that I love to talk about, right, is my family's business roots in the Valley have been super deep for a really long time. My family started in the real estate business, and our family's real estate company, Davis Coleman Realty, is still around.
Yeah, and Gary Coleman.
Yeah, and it's ran by my grandpa's business partner's sons now, and they're doing a great job. My family came in and started a sign company when I was 2 years old. And so I grew up basically sweeping floors, taking out garbage, cleaning toilets at the shop, you name it. I probably did it. And I was even fired multiple times.
That was CRC.
Yeah, CRC Design is what it was before we joined the franchise of Signarama. But I grew up in working in the family shop. And then when I got home from my LDS mission, I had an aunt and uncle that wanted me to learn business while I was going to business school. And so they bought me a food truck, right? So I had the Corn Dog Express, and I hand dipped foot-long corn dogs at the rodeo and at the farmer's market. And there's families that still all the time come and ask me like, when I'm going to do it again, And so here in the near future, it might be back. We'll see.
Bring back the dogs.
But, so I love that. I have my wife and 4 kids, and we live here in Heber, and we run the businesses, and, we love it all.
Adorable kids too.
Yeah. What's even crazier is we have a 5th on the way.
Congrats. I didn't know that.
I know. Yeah. We're starting to tell people. So my wife,
it's out.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife was like, hey, I want another one. And I was like, please. So is my truck big enough? Yes, but it has to get bigger now to fit another one.
Well, side note, I don't know if it was last summer. I think it was at your front door, and you pulled around, and you had just got back from a scouting high adventure trip, and you were covered in dirt, and your truck was full of boys. And I thought, that's Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love, and that's one of the things that I love to be able to do with my job is to walk away and go hang out with the youth in the community and with our church to be able to make experiences for them. Because the thing is that I have people that did that with me that are still around in the community that I talk to all the time, relying on, So
it's your turn to get back.
Yeah.
I want to dive back into your parents, Lisa and Clay Coleman. Clay, I was thinking as I was preparing for this, I've known your family for over 40 years. Chad Coleman, your uncle who passed away, and then your dad were so just involved in community. And Grandpa Coleman definitely instilled that into his kids. But they really prided themselves on local business. And I remember Clay in a lot of those Swiss Days meetings, helping the Swiss Days committee kind of navigate signage and what needed to happen in branding, and really was on the forefront of helping this community understand the strength of branding. And you became a big part of that.
Yeah, no, and I think going and seeing, I think if you were to see the first Swiss Days after my dad died, that's when you would really see his impact, right? I remember getting phone calls from every single person in the way, asking how something was done or what needed to be done. And I said, guys, I don't really know, right? For me, when my dad stepped into really like focusing on stuff outside of the business, it was my turn to step inside of all the business stuff so that he could go and serve and do better that way. And so a lot of those things I didn't know. But I remember the Thursday before that first Swiss days, uh, I went to drop off some stuff that they needed last minute, and they were all gathered in a huge meeting, and they had a huge list of me, and they were like, "We have no idea how he did this," right? And they turned and they saw me standing in the back, and you know, all of us, I think, were crying, and I was like, "You know what? Let's get it done." And I stayed there probably till 3 o'clock in the morning.
And I think that's what your dad did.
Yeah,
I think there were a lot of all-nighters that he would pull to make sure the signs and the signage, especially for events, because signage is so important.
Yeah.
To make sure that everything was right.
Yeah, and that was what he wanted. He wanted to make sure that everyone was successful there. Like, I mean, there are people that had booths there that probably didn't even make money back, right? But he went and just would thank them for coming, and he just wanted to give them every chance he could to make sure that they were going to make as much money as they could, you know. And there's a guy that he tracked me down and figured out who I was because I guess my dad would give him like one of the hats that he would make every year. My dad would go give it to one of the vendors, and so he found me, you know, and now I give them to him, you know, different things like that. And I actually met with the chairman of Swiss Days this year just a couple days ago, and he and I were designing the hats and the shirts and getting everything ready. And I was like, it's getting to the point where people actually really look forward to that stuff. But it's actually something that my dad just started, and he just started giving it away. Yeah. Right. And was just like, hey, like, thanks for helping. And then the church was finally like, in Swiss Days was like, hey, let's give these to everyone. And it's actually something that there's people that have hats for 10, 20 years.
It's like a collector's item now.
Yeah.
You either volunteered. So before it was you volunteered, and that's how you got to have the shirt. And I love that they made that change, that they now have a merchandise booth that you can purchase those items, because there are people that come in that want to be part of the Swiss Days memorabilia.
Yeah. And I mean, we were even talking earlier this week too, that's going to be the 80-year anniversary of Swiss Days next year. And so the merchandise that we have, we're already talking about it now just to make it that much more impactful. And so to see it and know it and to understand that, you know, he played a big role in it, it's cool to see and to keep his legacy alive with it.
Now, I'm curious, did you want to go into the family business? You said that you studied business. Were you looking at maybe doing something different? Or do you feel like this has always been your path?
No, this was definitely not my path by any means. And if you were to ask any of my siblings, right, especially since all the things have unfolded, they, you know, they used to hold it against me when we would have little tussles about, you know, what was happening with the business after my dad died. But, you know, a lot of them would say that I didn't want anything to do with it, right? When I was growing up and things, like I worked in it and I did it, but it wasn't my long-term plan. Like I was studying business management and I was getting my degree and things. And my plan was either go be a CPA or to be a mortgage lender. Those were like my two kind of paths that I had taken. And what ended up happening when my family bought me the food truck is when I wasn't, you know, dipping corn dogs and things, I was helping my dad at the shop. And I actually became one of the only certified car wrappers at the time in wrapping vehicles and doing that. I got to go to very special training with like 5 other people here in Utah with like one of the world's best car wrappers. And he pretty much just pulled me aside and he was like, Spencer, like, I don't care what you do, but I want you to like stick down with this path because I actually think you'll really start to like it. And this was pre-Signarama. Like this was when we were still cited like CRC and everything. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is, you know, fun. Like, you know, I always knew my dad could do whatever he wanted with the business. And so he had all the free time to come to my thing. So like from a family standpoint, it was great. But like financially, I was like, is this really going to make it, you know, be able to support still my dad at the time and my family? I didn't know. So no, it was very much something that, you know, I wasn't ever really going to do. I think when we flipped to become a Signarama and converted to that franchise, that organization, that group of people, they really truly focus on building just better people, right? And their drive that they put behind me really sparked my interest on wanting to do and wanting to become something far more than my dad and I ever thought we could do.
Did you feel like Signarama kind of created the framework that enabled you to see this is a career long term?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What and Signarama even painted the picture for us as well. But we knew it going in that we had a good foundation on how to build signs, how to sell signs, how to do all that. They definitely showed us the possibility of what could be above that. And they continue to push us to be better and better. But what they also do is they give us the ability to really focus on those things that make the customer experience and the end product better. And they help us with all the stuff that kind of wastes time and does all that. Like I have a whole marketing team that, spends, tons of money spending things that way, running our website, doing all these things where I can really focus on making sure the customers are enjoying their experience.
So I want to talk about signs for just a minute because I see you up in the bucket truck putting up signs. Are there favorites around the community that you drive by and think that was a bugger, but it was worth it?
Oh yeah, I think there's signs all over the place. And one of the things that I love and one of the things I think a lot of people come to us for is because I've been told this, as we've gone, is that, I'm crazy enough to try and build something that some other people aren't going to want to try it, right? Like the bike racks that we built on Main Street, you know, were kind of a fun thing that was just, no one else wanted to do it. We recently just built a massive four-sided clock for Deer Creek High School, right? And yeah, and that is it a sign? Not really, right? I put their logo on.
Like an old-fashioned clock
Yeah,
you would see.
correct. Yeah, like
in town.
Correct. Yeah. So this is a four-sided. It stands about 60 inches tall on all four sides, and then the Deer Creek logo's up underneath. It stands as a centerpiece in the commons. So when you guys go and see that, yeah, we built that, but that came from a phone call from the school district saying, "Hey, we think you're crazy enough to try this for us. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And
Cutting edge technology because you've got to make sure are they all the same time?
yeah, the clock parts are a piece that the driving motor all is, was all built all before, and so those all sync up just fine. But all the other machining and stuff that we did to happen right in our shop, and we fabricated it up right here in Heber and hung it up, and it's great. But I also really love, like, we recently redid the Midway sign, and that one actually has a special meaning. And I think when Mayor Johnson was the mayor and asked me to rebuild it, it took her a few years to have the guts to ask me, because it was actually the last job that my dad did, right? And he built the original sign 25 years ago.
Yeah. And what I love is it's a little bit of a throwback sign.
Yeah,
For sure. The little Swiss man, and very nostalgia. In a day where everyone wants new lettering and new fonts, that was definitely a throwback to the old Midway. But the colors on it, I mean, you really nailed it as far as capture that feel.
Yeah, and Midway's doing a great job as a whole, right? They're making those changes, and that was kind of their really like starting piece to say, okay, we're going to really bring back these hand carved, hand painted signs. Like if you look at all the little shops, whether it's Dainty Pear or at the bookshop, that's all that we've had to do are these carved signs, because that is the nostalgia of Midway, and that's what they want to stick with. But it was awesome to visit with Celeste, and she looked at me and she said, "Spencer, like the original one, the guy he was about 3 inches thick that sat on top of the old sign. This one is 24, and so he actually is built off of my measurements. So it sits pretty much like as if I was sitting up on top of there, and different things. But it's a unique thing, and to be able to do that, and then in that same process, we built while we were building that one, we built a 3-dimensional owl and gifted it to Old Mill Elementary, and the kids, stand by it and get their picture taken as they're graduating, and it goes around the school, and I've seen it dressed up as different things.
Yeah,
and
yeah. It truly represents the mascot of Old Mill.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the school loves it, and I think probably one of the biggest signs, I think, for me in ultimately understanding that like this is what I was meant to do comes from the Red Ledges signs. When you drive by and things, like they're designed very specifically to tie into that whole high end feel of that development. But that was actually the last conversation that I had with my dad. Right when my dad got checked into the hospital, and things began to take a turn. Our last conversation, we had just gotten approval to start building these 3 big monument signs for Red Ledges. And it was at the point where I told my dad, I was like, hey, I'm not going to ask for help anymore. I'm not going to have someone come do the cement work and the footing. Like, we can do that. I'm not going to ask someone to come do the stone work. We can cut the stone and we can do it. And, and so we gotten the permits. We were doing all of that. And my dad got checked in the hospital, and he and I sat down, and looking back at it, I think it was like his time to check to make sure I knew what I was talking about, because he asked me every single question that, like, from what are you going to do with the cement? How are you going to weld this? What do you get? Just checking boxes in his mind to be like, this kid is going to do it. Right.
You're ready. Yeah. It
And
was that sign that he knew you were
yeah.
ready.
Yeah. And so I remember finishing and building the sign and putting it in place. And I started it. My dad was alive, and I finished it, and he passed. And so, those signs, when I see them and things, I'm just like, that's when I knew, like, we were on the right track. And we had a great business when it was he and I, 100%. Like, it was, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. I mean, we pushed the envelope. People knew who we were. But now it like, with this passing, it's definitely a blessing. I tell people that, like, sometimes I have to, tell my employee on the other side to, like, calm down a little bit, because I'm getting a little overwhelmed. But it's kind of just one of those things where I'm like, Dad, like, this is where I wish you were here, because now we're really doing some crazy things, and regaining national attention, right? Like, I was selected as one of the young 30 under 30 signed professionals a few years ago, one of 5 in the world, right? Because of some of the things that we're doing. And so there's some things where I'm just like, Dad, like, this is how it should have been for a long time.
Hey, I want to move. I want to go to that because Signarama obviously does signs, but Spencer, you have evolved the company in a very short amount of time to really focus on promotional materials. You have a new product. You've got a couple here, but let's talk about this kind of new step that you've taken with Signarama promotional materials and the hats. You've got one on too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a really fun.
Right. So what happened? So shortly before my dad passed away, he purchased another franchise owned by the Signarama Group that is called Fully Promoted. It's their sister company, because we were getting, back before we had our Fully Promoted, we would be getting asked all the time for shirts, hats, like anything people could put their logo on, because they love their experience enough with us to build their sign, that they were just like, why aren't you just doing all the rest of this? Right. So my dad and mom had ran, like, silk screening embroidery for, 20 years side by side with the other. Signarama basically approached us and said, hey, we have this other franchise that you can get that will help you, you know, market this better, do this better. And so we ended up doing that. And it wasn't until after my dad died, I was actually on the phone with the president of Fully Promoted. And I said, hey, I'm going to sell this franchise off. Like, Signarama is my baby. Like, this is something. Yeah. Yeah. Before my mom and dad ran Fully Promoted, I ran Signarama, is how it was for a while. And so after he died, I was like, hey, I'm not even going to dip my toes in this. Like, I knew how to do it and I knew what it was, but it wasn't something that I got excited about. And I was on the phone with him one morning, and I was just like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. I want to just get rid of this franchise and, move on and just focus on signs and make that what it's going to be. And he didn't take no for an answer, that it was done. And so we made a deal, and I basically said, okay, here's what I want then. If we're going to do this, I want you to come and train me as if I'm a brand new franchisee. I want you to send your best person out here, and I want you to just come spend a week with me, and let's, like, paint the picture for me. Help me see what we can do.
Yeah, almost show me the vision of
Yeah.
what Fully Promoted could be, because you hadn't bought into that.
No. And so, because I was loving what we were doing with the science thing. That's where my heart was. That's where, my passion was. And that's where I was just seeing my happiness come from. And so he flew out one of his trainers, and he flew out the number one Fully Promoted in the system, who actually happens to be just in Boise, Idaho. And he's a younger guy. He's 5 years older than me. And they sat me down and we walked through, start to finish what this could look like. And it was really interesting. And it kind of made me like, okay, this is actually kind of fun. And so I was like, okay, so if we try this out and we do this, this is what we're gonna see. And so one of the things that really kicked it off this, and Spencer, we want you to have like an open house event. Bring all of your existing customers and show them that this is what you're now offering. So we did it. We basically brought 200 plus people through the shop, and I gave gifts to them that were branded. Some of them were branded Utah, some of them were branded Heber Valley, some of them were branded Signarama, some of them were branded Flip Front. I gave every person like $150 worth of gifts, and everyone loved it. And it just started to like, go from there. People just start, and every day people are like, oh, we need shirts, we need hats. And so it's just a way for our customers to really, keep their logos and keep their stuff with one person. And so it's really nice. The third business that now has come out of it, right, is the Onus Headwear. One of the things that I found as people were wanting hats is that they wanted these higher end hats. They wanted, different things. And actually, funny story, it's actually Reggie Probst that kind of pushed me to go figure this out.
Let's dive into that because you and I have had this conversation. I had not heard of this from the Reggie side, but he kind of challenged you a little bit.
Yeah, well, his team basically, Probst Electric, Quanta, that whole big empire was having a major issue with their hats, is what happened. And they came to me and they said, hey, we want a solution. We want to have a cost-effective solution because we order like thousands and thousands of hats.
Yeah, you're talking about a Fortune 500 company across the United States, Puerto Rico.
Right. Yeah. So it was an opportunity that, I think Reggie and his team for, kind of opening the door and the avenue. But it made me go on this search of how do we manufacture our own line of hats. Yeah. And so I didn't have any like physical money backing, but I had this possibility of doing it. So I invested some money and I went around and I found the processes and I figured out, how it all happens. And I got samples made and different things. And we made tweaks and we made fine tunes and we landed on what the Quanta Group uses now as their hat going forward. And it's awesome. And their employees love it. And what's even greater is that it saved that company thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and you think about a company like that because the hat is part of the uniform, yes.
Yeah.
But these guys and women are out in the field. They are doing hard work. They're putting hard hats on and off, and that hat becomes a barrier, a protection, but it's also a branding opportunity for these companies. Yeah. But they want something that their employees want to wear.
Yeah, exactly. And then they give them out too at various rodeos and different things as their kind of function that they're going to. And so as I was researching in that and kind of, finding like the fun, new learning things and curves to that business, I came across some really niche opportunities, I would say, to be able to bring some different things to hats. And so I started playing around. I actually had an obsession with the jewelry class when I was in high school, right? I loved melting the metal down and making rings and different things. My mom actually made me drop out of it one semester and do woods because I was spending so much money. And so I ended up.
She was tired of paying that fee.
Spencer.
Yeah. Let's truth is.
That's what
Lisa was like, I'm done paying for the silver that you just keep earning.
Yes. So I came up with this idea to put a metal patch on a hat. And so as I was going through this process and really learning how I wanted it to work, I started to make samples for various customers and different things, and people started to love it. And people started to see it and it really took off. And so I actually have a patent pending on the process. And so we now take, so this is obviously one of our Signarama hats that has this metal patch hat, but the way that we've patented it and build it is that it matches the curvature to our hats. And then it is blindly put in here so no one could see how it's attached or take off. And so
they're really nice hats. And I've seen several different logos. In fact, I think Deer Creek High School.
Yeah, so Deer Creek High School has there's some really big things. And so in kind of saying, okay, I'm gonna start this third company, I basically sat down and said, who in the world are the biggest hat fanatics that like I know? And so there were customers of ours that I made a list of. Van Kelly is one that he owns a cowboy hat company called War Bonnet Hats, right? And so it just so happened that right as he bought that is kind of when I started with this. And so I jumped on a phone with him and I was like, hey, here's what we can do. Let's do this together. And they took them to the NFR and sold them out in less than an hour. Right. And so we knew we kind of had something cool. And so as I was making this list of people, Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz and the Utah Mammoths and Smith Entertainment Group, is the base hat fanatic in the state of Utah. And so I kind of was like, I put him at the top of my list. I said, I want to get Ryan Smith these hats. Like, I want to get him a Jazz and Mammoth hat. And so we forged and made molds of the logos for the Mammoths and the Jazz. And it took me 6.5 months to physically give them to Ryan.
Just to get in front of him.
Yeah, to get in front of Ryan. I didn't even physically pass them off to him. It got passed out to an employee, that got them to him. But Ryan Smith took our Mammoth hat to the Olympics in Italy and wore it at every single game when one of his Mammoth players was playing. And then I got a phone call from his purchaser, and I went and met with them 2 days before the first playoff game here in Utah. And they asked me how many hats I could give them the next day. And I was like, hey, I can't make any that fast, but we're working through all of that right now. But then Ryan Smith the next day wore the same hat for his interview debuting the Mammoths' first playoff game here in Utah. And so,
that is so awesome.
So those are kind of some of the things that
took time, and it was a lot of work. You had to get behind the scenes, and you had to, you made that goal of I want Ryan Smith to wear my hat, and then it was on national TV.
Yeah, and it's great, and so now like customers come in and there's, we're totally remodeling the whole shop now to really encompass what this legacy company is all about, in that it's Signarama fully promoted and this honest headwear, and showing them why we are that choice for people to come to and things. And so, yeah, it's fun to be able to work with these big organizations, but it's also really humbling to work with these startups that are just trusting us with, some of them trust us with their life savings for a minute and saying, hey, we want to have this dream too. And, it's great to be part of everyone's journey.
I want to talk about that because you really do work with a lot of local companies. Let's start with the negatives. What are some common mistakes that you're seeing with some of these small business owners that maybe don't understand the power of marketing?
Heber is such a hard place to have a small business. There are times because when people come and meet with me because they're needing a sign or they're needing help with a logo, and they are basically giving me their business plan, there's some times where I have to kind of like bite my tongue. One, because I don't want to offend, right, these people, but like I also hope the best for all of them as well. But it's tough in knowing, like, will this kind of place work in Heber City or in Midway? Like, will it really thrive? There's times where, things don't work out, right? There's businesses that we all know of that have come and gone. And there's businesses that I know of right now that are really struggling, and it's tough. And it's, it's kind of where we're at, and, geographically close to some of the other bigger cities, and it's just easier. But, one of the things that I try to get them to do and help them understand, if they're going to have us help them with the sign, is that I really want that part of their branding and that part of their marketing to be something that really stands out. And one of my favorite examples of that that's more recent is the Summit Watch Club. Okay. So Summit Watch Club is owned by Jim Roach. He started Timber Knives, right? If you guys know Timber Knives and things like that. Jim came to me, and he and I are good friends. And he said, hey, I want to start this watch shop. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. And we went back and forth, and I finally sketched for him a sign that looked like a watch face. So if you look at his sign, especially at night when it's lit up, it is the silhouette of a watch.
Yeah.
And so, and he gets people coming in all the time because they see that and they say, oh my goodness, like, what is that? And so, what I want to convey and try and do for people and businesses is make it so that there's something that grabs someone's attention, because it's so hard to do that with people going, down the road,
miles an hour on me.
looking and even just, them looking on their phones. There's so many types of marketing that you'll see on your phone that people are just scrolling through, that sometimes it just doesn't take that. It just takes something different. And that's what we're going for. One of the things that we're really excited about, I mean, it's not for our community, but it's for Vineyard City, is we got contacted by Vineyard City about 2 or 3 months ago. They have a huge project going on for Geneva Steel. If you've ever gone down to the Larry H. Miller complex and the Topgolf right there, they have the Geneva Steel ladle on display in their roundabout. And for years, they've been trying to come up with something to express to people what that is.
Yeah. Explain the story.
Yes. Yeah. And the history of this,
These kids that are 19 and 20 that are moving into Vineyard.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah.
Geneva Steel.
Yeah. And so they want to be able to continue that legacy and tell that story. And so I got a phone call that someone had referred my name to this group of people that said, hey, if you want something totally unique, like, you got to call these guys. And so I went down and I met with them. They showed me all the renderings from all the other sign companies that they'd met with. And I mean, I could see why they didn't love them. And these are sign companies that I respect. Like, I mean, these is Yesco, like Allied. These are big sign companies that, I would love to learn from and do learn from. And so I was very shocked at, what they had presented to them. And I remember driving up Provo Canyon, and sometimes I don't know how it works or why it works. It does, but I'll just start to sketch things out in my mind of like, okay, how do I really make this something like jaw dropping? And these customers ended up spending $10,000 more with us because of what I presented to them. This is such a unique project that, I mean, it's taking us 3 months. Like, it's the most unique thing we've built today, probably.
I love it.
But like, and I think we're going to have opportunities like that coming in Heber City soon. I've talked with Matt about hopefully making like some really good statement piece signs for, coming into Heber. I think would be really awesome, and different things like that. But like, I love just making things that people see and understand that are different. Another great win that's more local here, the L&L Auto Repair, right? That great family, they came to us, and I had, they use a spark plug in their logo, which I think is cool, but I never really saw it anywhere on their things. And so when I sketched up their signs, the spark plug is a major part of it, and it had like it. They have a 15-foot long, 4-foot tall spark plug on the side of their building now.
And I think we should give a shout out to Lynn and Teresa Mason.
Yeah.
Lynn and I went to high school together, and they're one of those auto body shops and mechanic shops that they get things done. They're honest. They'll tell you what's really happening with your vehicle, and they'll give you an honest timeline.
Yeah.
And so that spark plug really does represent their family, though.
Yeah.
They now have a son working for them, and Teresa is there as much as Lynn is. But yeah, you're right. That sign really defined them, where before you could have easily passed by that mechanic shop and not even known that that's what they do.
Yeah. And probably about a week after we put it up, I was getting phone calls of people asking me if I built it, and so that's where it's a win, right? When you make something that just people notice, especially on a business like that, that's been there for so long, that does a great job. You just have to twist it just a little bit differently to get something to catch someone's eye, because, we all put blinders on. Like, there's certain things that when we drive around town, we don't want to see, right? Because we've seen it 1,000 times. But when we can see something a little differently, that's when it's exciting.
It's interesting. You mentioned Midway and Folklore and Dainty Fair, and there's some shops there that really in the last 2 years have helped elevate Midway's downtown. But you look at a lot of those beautiful signs that they wanted to create that European feel. And it's interesting to think that those signs really are what's defining, plus the architecture And I would say South Hill as it comes together. And, right now it's a big construction project, but it really is giving Midway that European flair that I think those original settlers, when they built Midway, because they built it out of hot rock and they really have the charm of those gingerbread homes, it's fun to see Midway coming back to that look.
Yeah, well, and even, we're doing a bunch of stuff with the homestead too, right? And they have to play by those same rules, which is great that Midway's gotten everyone to buy off on it, because it is hard to explain to a business that, hey, like, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more money because this is what Midway wants.
This is the standard architecture design standards.
But that continuity and the consistency of that's where it really, shines forth. And Midway is a great example of that. And in making it feel comfy and cozy and welcoming, where it really is something to be proud of. And another example of that is at the high school, right? I remember one of the first jobs my dad would always make me do, my little brother and I, is we had to put up the sponsor banners at the football and the baseball field. And it was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. I got sick and tired of me like talking with the business owners, right? Because the high school would say, hey, here's our sponsors. I would then call them up. Hey, what do you want your banner to look like? And it just became like, this is like, I got to have a huge picture. I got to have a huge phone number. I got to have like all of this. And it just became this mess on this back line. And so I remember pulling in Steve Marcy, who was the athletic director at the time, and Justin Kelly, and we sat down. I said, guys, here's what I think we do. I said, I think we elevate our status now and we go black and gold. We say to the sponsors, all you get is a gold logo on this black background. That's all we want, because we want to show people that we're unified, that we're consistent for the high school. And there was a lot of people that were really frustrated at first. Like, there were businesses that are like, I'm not going to get the amount of exposure. But now there are more sponsors that sponsor the high school because of that move that we made than not, because it shows people that we're coming together for a better cause, right? Like, yes, businesses are going to get noticed, but it's also that way for business to say, I support the school and I want to be part of this bigger thing. And it's awesome to just look back there and just see all this consistent, just black and gold.
So on that note, I want to talk about the Cool Care program. Earlier, we talked about your participation with Annie Labrum, but I don't think a lot of people know that you're the guy that wraps these cars. And then, we mentioned that these cars you see on the road for many years afterwards. How did you get involved in that? Obviously, you talked about that you were the car wrap guy, but how long does that process take to wrap those cars?
Usually it takes a lot longer. So I know every year that it's going to come up, right? And so a few months in advance, I'll start sketching different things. The thing that I don't get told until 2 days before the car is due is what kind of car it is and what color. So Danny usually has to just kind of make this decision fairly quickly. And it always happens just right before the parade for fair days, because that's when we debut it. And so the process has to go very quick, where it is a split second decision on, this is the car. And then it's boom, it comes to me and the design is done in an hour and it's getting printed and it's wrapped the next day and it's out the door. So not all the time do I love having it happen. We just do it that way because we have to.
All-nighter projects.
Yes, this is one where it just has to happen that fast just because of the circumstance. But it's something that our team really likes. And so we have like our inspiration for each year, and so we have a rough idea of what it's going to look like this year and things, and we'll make it mold to whatever car it is. But that's the great thing about doing that with Danny, is that we have the complete freedom to do it. We just want to make it, really impactful for the school. And so sometimes we go really heavy on the black and gold, sometimes not so much. We want the kids to not feel ashamed that they're driving the car, but really that they can be proud of it and know that like they were the ones that won it, and that they don't have to just, wish for the day to be able to peel it all off.
Yeah, it's such a great program. When Justin, maybe even Sean started it, it was an attempt to help teenagers see that it was important to and notice people in need And teachers give students these cool to care cards saying, hey, thank you for stepping up and doing something good in our community at the schools. And, it's been such an amazing kind of journey as you look at the students that have won it. I'm so impressed this year's winner, the Baird girl. You know, she's one of those girls that really deserved it. And she comes from a great family. Her mom, Sally Baird, librarian at Midway, and really emphasizes literacy, and her dad chat. So it's fun when you see those kids that emulate that cool to care program and win that car. And I passed her the other day driving it, and I was just like, it means so much to these kids, but it's such a representation of the community.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's really fun to go to the high school during the school year, right? And I have students come up to me and say thank you, and different things because they know we do it. And then when it's not there during the summertime, I have kids that will, come to the shop or see me at the church, and that's what they ask about,
Yeah.
right? They're like, "Hey, what's the cool to care car going to be? What's it?" It's a fun driving force, right? And yeah, it's a life changing thing, but I love being able to hear from Danny on the fun that he has in giving it. And I love watching, and seeing the kids' reactions as they, turn the car starts, like if I was in that situation, it'd be pretty nerve wracking,
Yeah.
but it's fun little thing that we get to do. And, I try harder and harder to make our name and Labram's name smaller on it, so that, it's not like a huge ordeal, but it's great. And the one that we do with the teachers is really fun too, right? Like I loved being able to do that one for the Wasatch Learning Academy this past year because I think those teachers really appreciate it. And that's something that was new too, and that one is actually a unique kind of story with us as well because when we were first asked to do that, right, it was just the cool teachers care. It's a little pencil logo that someone drew up for them, and that's all we put on the car. And I was like, that is so boring, And so that car we don't know until there's a drawing. So it gets done with just simple graphics stating that it's gonna be the car, but then it actually comes back to me, and we tailor wrap it to whichever school it gets. And so that's kind of the fun thing now too is that we're so used to designing stuff for just, Wasatch High School, and we're, really good at doing the cool to care cars and things like that. But now this teacher car is making it so like, we did the Wasatch Learning Academy. We'll see where it goes this next year, but that's kind of a fun thing that we really like doing as well as, making that teacher car something that those teachers can be proud to drive as well.
You mean the llama, the
Yeah.
base? That was the first time I saw that. I thought, what? And it is. It's eye catching. So yeah,
Yeah.
well done with that. Yeah.
It's a fun one.
Okay, Spencer. As we wrap up, I want to talk about just a couple of things that drive you. What is motivating you to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get to work?
I love when my customers make money. It is my favorite thing when a customer comes in with their first vehicle and I put stickers on it and then they come to me with their like 50th. And to see how they grow and to see what they do, it just makes me like just want to be that much better. And I think that's why I started all these other companies to to serve them better is that it was like, you know what? They're making strides and we're making strides too. Signarama has doubled, tripled, quadrupled, which is great. But it's so neat to see what all these other businesses are doing. I love that. But I also love one of the things that I remember is in seventh grade, right? Tom Stone, Tom Stone, he came and he visited with uh, my class and he talked about how the one thing he loved about his job was the freedom that he got to go do whatever he wanted to do. So part of the reason why I go in super early as well is so that I can drop whatever I want and go take care of my wife and my kids, and we can go make memories and we can go do whatever we want to do. And so knowing that my customers are taken care of makes my family time that much more balanced, that much more special, and that much more important to them. And so my kids know, it's actually really interesting. And I don't know if it's that my youngest, she's 2.5. She asks me every night before bed, she says, Dad, will you be home? That's what she said. She said, Dad, will you be home? And she's asking me, will I be home in the morning? Because I'm only home in the morning when she wakes up on Saturdays and Sundays. And so she always looks forward to those days because that's when I get her out of bed, and her and I kind of play a little bit. But I think she kind of realizes and knows that like daddy's working and doing those things. But I do it for those moments with them, that we get to go do those things as a family and really enjoy what we're supposed to enjoy.
I love that. But, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of pressures. So how do you feel like you're balancing personal life, professional life?
I this isn't embarrassing to say by any means, but uh my business is ran so much on faith and prayers. One of the things, so when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the shop, the first thing I do is I hit my knees every single day and I pray super hard for, certain things to happen. And, I want it to be that way. And I want this, you know, comfort and feeling of my dad to be there. And I want as many blessings as I'll be able to give if I do my part. And so as I do that, it's amazing the little miracles that my employees have seen. And you could even ask them, we call all of them in here and be like, what is Spencer's number one saying in the shop? And they'll all tell you that that's why I pray. Multiple times throughout the day. Doesn't matter if something bad is happening, something really good. It's like, guys, that's why I pray in the morning. And one of the things that I really love to see is when they recognize those things and they come to me and they say, Spencer, we are so glad that you pray for this. And it is one of those things that I find so important in my life. And it's helped me be so grounded because, right, like when I lost my dad, I was sitting in the hospital with my sister. And, this was at the point where this was probably a week and a half before my dad passed away. He was sedated. He wasn't talking. And my oldest sister and I are a lot closer than the other siblings to my dad and to the business. I said, how am I going to do this? Right? Like my dad was the reason that I could go dangle from a rooftop or, could go push the limits because I knew that he was going to catch me.
Yeah,
Right? Like I knew that there was going to be money in the bank because I was going to work my butt off to make sure that he had it and then we could keep going. And I turned to her and said, I can't do this, right? I can't do this anymore because I can't do it without him. And so the things that I do to help myself prepare every morning to make sure that I'm good are to just make sure that I'm respecting him and keeping him there because I know he's helping me and I know that he'll help me forever, but I have to respect and take care of what I have stewardship over.
That's right. I love that. Heaven is definitely an option. Oh, well, I was going to ask you where your favorite place to grab lunch is, but I feel like us going from there to what do you have for lunch is probably a little bit of a softball question.
And that's okay. One of the things that I love doing is going out for lunch in the community. And it's something
this is why I asked because I've seen you at lunch.
No, yeah. And I try really hard to go to all sorts of places because that's where I probably will get a job or a lead for a job every time I go to lunch. But it's also one of those ways too that I share with the customer, that like, I'm going to continue to invest in you guys. Like, you know what I mean? You spent tens of thousands of dollars with me, right? We're going to be there. And so, yeah, my family loves going to the Hub and to Chick's Cafe, and my kids love eating at the bowling alley, right? And we love going to Dairy King and different things. But what I love more than going and eating the food is seeing those owners see me supporting them. And so we try super hard as a family to really make sure that we're seen out in the community at least once or twice a week so that they know we're going to be there to support that.
Spencer, I know that you give back in so many ways, not just in the stories you told us today, but you're out there giving, you serve with the Chamber on the Advisory Board. And this has been really special. I appreciate you sharing so many careers because it's, I want to thank you for honoring your family legacy. I have a connection with the Coleman family. And, you guys are great. You have served well, and I appreciate that. Whew. But you represent the heart of entrepreneurship in Heber Valley, and I'm just grateful for the creativity, the connection, and uh, your dad would be very proud and is proud of the work that you're doing. So I'm a mess, and we're going to wrap up, but I just want to thank those who are listening because these stories matter, and this is what makes Heber Valley Heber Valley. So Spencer Coleman, thank you.
Yeah, and I think too, Rachel, what we also need to do, and you'll know the date better on the date that we're sponsoring the concert series, but I do want to make sure that we get as many locals out there because we have some really great gifts coming for that event. So we got a really cool Heber City sign that we built that will be there. We have hats for as many people as we have that will be there. Some shirts, some really fun things that we can get back. So
yeah. So what Spencer's referring to, they at the Coleman Legacy family companies is one of the sponsors of the Market on Main, and we wouldn't be able to do the Market on Main without Big of Utah and our weekly sponsors. And I can't think of the date right off my head.
So no, we got figured out something. I mean, it's in August though. It might be August. I don't know. We need to figure that out, but that's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Every Thursday night. But I am so grateful for you when I reached out and said, would you be willing? I think you actually reached out to me and said, I want to sponsor.
Yeah. I've been wanting to for a while. So I think that's one of the great things about the community, and it'll be a great place for people to really love Heber City
and connect with the Coleman Legacy family. Spencer, thank you again. And Rachel Kaler with Community Alliance for Main Street signing off with tears in my eyes. So, thanks so much, everyone.